In the previous videos, we looked at some ways to set keys on objects in your Maya scenes, as well as some ways to adjust the timing. We'll continue looking at that today. So in my scene, you'll see that I have two cones, one yellow cone and one red cone. I'm going to switch to my front viewport, and I will select the two cones, use my move tool. I will set a key on frame 1, scrub in my timeline to frame 12, and I will set another key. Remember that you can set keys either by going to the animation drop down, then go to key, set key, or you can also use the hotkey of S on your keyboard. Those are two different ways that you can set keys. There are some additional ways that I'll show in the future. So currently I have two keys on my objects, but they're not doing anything, and that is because I haven't changed the values here in the channel box. I'm going to scrub in my timeline half a second later, so 12 frames, because I'm animating at 24 frames a second. And I'm going to move these two cones on the x-axis by 12 units. This time I'll use the S key to set a key. Notice that I don't have a key on frame 24 yet. That's because I haven't pressed the S key. As soon as I do, I have a keyframe on that frame, on frame 24. I'm going to scrub another half a second later to frame 36, and I will rotate the cones 180 degrees. Remember that you can use your tools here for translating, rotating, and scaling. You can also type the values in directly into the channel box itself. And because I want them to rotate exactly 180 degrees, I'll go ahead and manually put that in. And once again, I will press S on my keyboard. Notice that on frame 36, I now have a keyframe on that frame as well. And then I will finally go back to the beginning. I'll scrub 12 frames later to frame 48 and move these cones back to where they started from. And I will press S to set a key. If I scrub my animation in the timeline, you'll see that in fact these cones are animated. If I play the animation, you'll see that the animation plays. Now, you'll remember from the previous videos that I showed you could adjust the timing of your animations here in our timeline. With the objects selected, for example, I can shift, select the keys here. Let's say I'll select these keys here. And I can move them. I'm going to move them so that instead of taking half a second to arrive over here, it'll take a full second. I'm going to shift the keys over by 12 frames. Now, if I play the animation, they'll take 1 second to arrive over here, and then they take half a second still to return. So that's a quick and easy way to adjust the timing of your animations. There are, however, additional tools that we can use that will make adjusting your keyframes even easier. And the one that we will be looking at today is called the dope sheet. You will find the dope sheet here under Windows, Animation Editor's dope sheet. Notice that I have my two cones selected, the red cone and the yellow cone. And in fact, if you look in the dope sheet, you'll see that there's the red cone and the yellow cone. If I deselect, I have nothing selected, we'll see nothing in our dope sheet. If I select the yellow cone, we'll see the yellow cone with its keyframes. If I also shift select the red cone, you'll see the red cone as well. To read the dope sheet, notice that we have our timing here. Currently, I'm on frame 85 in the timeline here, and you'll see that there's this red line, and it is also at frame 85. If I scrub this to, let's say, frame 12, you'll notice that I'm on frame 12 on my timeline. I'm also on frame 12 in the dope sheet. The dope sheet really is an excellent tool for adjusting the timing of your animations. When I scrub in my animation, notice that from frame 1 to frame 12, nothing happens between these two keyframes. Between frame 12 and frame 36, the cones move. They get to these keyframes here. They remain static. Well, no, they don't remain static. They actually rotate to point in the other direction because that's how I animated them. Over the course of half a second, on frame 48, they return back to that last keyframe, frame 60, where they return to their original position. I'll play the animation again. Adjusting your animations is very easy in the timeline. I'm going to marquee select all of my keyframes. Remember that right now they're starting to animate on frame 12. What if I want them to start immediately? I want them to start moving immediately on frame 1. Well, I'll simply use my middle mouse button and I will move the keys so that the animation starts on frame 1. Now there'll be no half-second delay at the beginning. They'll start immediately when I hit the play button. Also, if I scrub the animation, you'll see they start immediately now on frame 1. If I wish to return the animation back to the way that it worked originally, once again, I'll just use my middle mouse button and I'll move all the keys over by 12 frames. Now, you're already familiar with navigating in Maya. I'm in my perspective window here, and you know that you can use the Alt key to rotate the camera around your scene. You can use the Alt and the left mouse button to rotate around your scene, the Alt middle mouse button to pan your scene, and the Alt right mouse button to zoom in and out. You can also use the wheel on your 3-button mouse to zoom in and out as well. In my orthographic views, in other words, my top, front, and side views, I can also use the same button combinations, except that with the Alt left mouse button, I cannot rotate because it's an orthographic view. But I can do the Alt pan, and I can do Alt and do the right mouse button to zoom in and out, or use the wheel to zoom in and out of my scene. If we open up our dope sheet, these same combinations will work also here. Once again, Alt left mouse button won't do anything because you cannot rotate the dope sheet, but Alt and the middle mouse button will pan it, and the Alt right mouse button will zoom in and out. It is not moving the keys themselves, it's rather zooming in on time, for lack of better description. We're zooming in on our keyframes here, but we're not actually changing the timing of them. So let's play around a little bit more with the timing of these two cones. And for this example, what I'm going to do, currently the timing for the red and the yellow cone are identical to one another, but we're going to change it up a little. So instead, we'll make the yellow cone arrive, instead of taking a full second to arrive here, we'll make the yellow cone move faster. It'll take only half a second to arrive at this location. So I will grab its keys. Notice that I do not have the red cone's keys selected, and I'll middle mouse drag them so that the yellow cone arrives more quickly. And if we play the animation, you'll see how the timing has been adjusted. I think I'll also adjust the yellow cone's timing as it returns back so that it actually takes a full second and arrives at the same time as the red cone. The red cone arrives at frame 60. Currently I only have the yellow cone selected. I will select its last keyframe, middle mouse drag it to frame 60. And now the two cones will arrive at the same time, but the yellow cone will arrive there more slowly. And if we play the animation, you'll see how the adjusting of the timing affects the animation. Now, when I've been setting my keys, you'll remember that we can go to key and we can say set key, or we can use the S hotkey to do that. But one thing to keep in mind about that is that we are actually setting a key on all 10 of these channels here. We're setting a key on the translate X, Y, and Z, on the rotates X, Y, and Z, the scales X, Y, and Z, as well as visibility, 10 different channels. And if we look in the dope sheet, currently I have the yellow cone selected. You'll notice the yellow cone is here, and there's a plus icon here. And if I expand on that plus icon, you'll notice that we actually have the translates, rotate, and scales here, and we have individual keys for those different channels. So what would happen if I were to select just the rotate keys on my cone and delete them? Now, if I scrub the animation, you'll see that they're both still animated. The yellow cone is still moving. However, there's no longer any rotation happening on it. In fact, you'll notice in the channel box itself that the rotate X, Y, and Z are no longer red, indicating that they do not have keyframes on them any longer. Now, if I wanted to reanimate those, what I can do is simply key it again, by holding down S. It'll put a key on everything. Or, I'm going to undo that, I can also animate separate channels. So what I'm going to do is it's the rotate Z, as you can see, that I'm actually rotating, that I'm actually keying. What I can do is select rotate Z, right click on the word in my channel box, and key selected. This is a way that I can key a single channel. I'll move to frame 12. I will key that as well. Move to frame 24, right click, key select, go to frame 36 and rotate it 180 degrees. This time actually I'm rotating it negative 180 degrees, so it rotates in the opposite direction. And I will key that. Now, a few moments ago, we looked at how we could expand the channels for our yellow cone that we currently have selected so that we could see the keys for visibility, translate, rotate, and scale. However, you'll remember that we actually have 3 channels for rotation, X, Y, and Z. I'm going to select the red cone as well and expand that. And what I want to show you here is with the rotate, there's also a plus icon. And if I expand that, I have my rotate X keys, rotate Y keys, and rotate Z keys. In fact, if I just select the red cone to make this a little easier to look at, you'll notice here are the keys for the red cone. Once again, I will expand. We have our visibility track. We have our 3 translate tracks, 3 rotate tracks here, and also 3 for scale. So in fact, we have a lot of individual keyframes for all these different channels on this cone. I'm going to click on this minus icon here to collapse that so that we can look at this a little more neatly. Before wrapping up this video, I'd like to show you one more way that we can look at the dope sheet here. I'm going to close it. And what I'm going to do, right now you can see I have 4 different windows here that I can take a look at my scene through, the perspective, top, front, and side views. I'm going to go back to my front view, and I will go here to panels, and you'll notice that under layouts you have a number of different layouts that you can actually choose. I'm going to choose the 2 panes stacked. Now I have a front view here that we've been looking at. And I also have a perspective view. However, I can make any of these views any other view that I want. I can go here, for instance, and say panels, orthographic, and make it the top view. Or I can return it back to being a perspective view. In addition, I can also make it into the dope sheet. I'll simply go to Panel, Dope Sheet. Select my objects, and here I have my front view and my dope sheet. If I wish to expand any of these, I simply press my space bar and I can easily switch between these two views. If I wish to return back to the normal 4-panel view, I'll simply click on this button here, and I'm back into the normal Maya view that you're accustomed to. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and thank you for watching.